Reddit users, has someone close to you betrayed you? I found out that my mom had a lover, and it was my best friend. I entered the house without making a sound. I had forgotten my phone in the living room and went to get it. But when I passed by the door of their room, I heard voices, their voices. I thought my mind was playing tricks on me, but when I opened the door, there they were. My best friend and my mom, together. Since we were children, we were inseparable. I considered him a brother. We grew up sharing everything, video games, parties, problems. If something happened to me, he was the first person I would call. I trusted him more than anyone. My mom, a 45-year-old woman, was always affectionate and overprotective, but I never imagined what she was hiding. She always said that my best friend was like a son to her, and I believed her. But everything changed the day I discovered his biggest secret. The day my world came crashing down. Samuel had been my neighbor since we were children. His mother had passed away when he was only 6 years old, and his father, a high-ranking military officer, spent most of his time on missions abroad. That's why my mother, Veronica, took him in as if he were part of the family. We grew up together, shared everything, and even entered the same university. When I was 19 and in my second year of university, I started noticing strange things. I spent a lot of time at university, so it seemed strange to me that Samuel was at my house even when I wasn't. He had always gotten along well with my mother, but lately, I noticed them talking more than usual, with a complicity I hadn't noticed before. Once, while we were playing video games at his house, I saw a notification on his phone. It was a message from my mom. I didn't get to read it all, but it seemed strange to me. I had also found him in my house at times when he usually didn't visit me, and when I asked him, he said he had just stopped by to say hello. It should be noted that my father is the manager of a courier company, so he had trips that lasted several days. I overlooked all that, until the day everything changed. As part of an extra course in my degree, I had to do a research project on geoglyphs. Together with some classmates, we had organized an expedition to camp in a wooded area and collect data. Everything was planned, but upon arriving at the campsite, I realized I had forgotten some important tools at home. I quickly returned on my motorcycle. It was almost 10 o'clock at night when I arrived. I turned off the engine and got out in a hurry, but before entering, I noticed something that left me frozen. Samuel was standing in front of my house. He looked restless, glancing around as if making sure no one saw him. Then, with complete confidence, he opened the door and entered. I stood still, frowning. What was he doing there at that hour? It wasn't unusual for him to come home, but something about his attitude seemed strange to me. My father was on a business trip, as always. The house was supposed to be empty, except for my mother. I approached stealthily and waited a few minutes in the darkness, trying to hear something. There was an eerie silence, interrupted only by faint murmurs coming from my parents' room. My stomach turned. I pushed the door carefully and entered without making a sound. I moved down the hallway, sticking to the wall, feeling the adrenaline coursing through me. Upon reaching the slightly open door of the room, my breath became heavy. A few muffled laughs and a stifled moan made my skin crawl. With my heart pounding in my chest, I slowly pushed the door. And then I saw him. Samuel and my mother were in my father's bed, naked, in the act. The world stopped. The rumpled sheets, the sound of their bodies moving, the way she touched him, the expression of pleasure on her face. Samuel was not just an intruder in my house. He was her lover. A dizziness hit me. I couldn't move. I couldn't even breathe. It was an image that my brain refused to process. And then, my mother turned her head and saw me. His face froze in pure terror. I didn't think about it. My body moved on its own. With a scream of fury, I lunged at Samuel. I yanked him out of bed and threw the first punch with all my strength. He barely had time to react before I hit him again, this time in the jaw. Son of a bitch, I shouted, feeling the rage burning inside me. Samuel tried to defend himself, but I was blinded by rage. I grabbed a vase from the nightstand and smashed it against his head. He fell to the floor, dazed, while my mother screamed in despair. Enough. Stop, please, she begged me, but I couldn't hear her. I kicked him again before she stepped between us, pushing me forcefully. Go to hell, Mom, I blurted out with a voice I didn't even recognize. She ran to call an ambulance while I stood there, breathing heavily, watching Samuel lying on the floor, bleeding. I would have liked to say that I felt satisfied, but it wasn't like that. I just felt empty. Shortly after, the paramedics and the police arrived. They took me to the police station. I spent the night locked up, unable to believe what had happened. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't get that image out of my head. When they finally let me out, my mother was waiting for me outside. Her eyes were swollen from crying so much. "Please, don't tell your father anything," he begged me with a broken voice. I didn't answer him. I just walked away. Since that day, nothing was ever the same again. Today I am writing this because I need some advice. I have a dilemma that won't leave me in peace. My mother begged me not to tell my father and promised that it wouldn't happen again, but I still haven't spoken to my supposed friend because he is still in the hospital and no one knows how he is doing, only that he didn't press charges. Should I tell my father the truth? Or is it better to leave everything in the past? What would you do in my place? Remember that for more stories like this you can click on the videos that appear on screen, equally or more interesting than this one. Remember that you can become a channel member for less than $50, and don't forget to subscribe because Reddit is interesting.